My name is Will Chandler. I'm excited to be here with you all tonight, talking about Ember Octane, fueling the future. As many of you know, I was at EmberConf with quite a few of you recently, and tonight we're doing some recaps. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about Ember Octane, which was covered in the opening keynote by Tom Dale and Yehuda Katz. When they were talking about the future of Ember, Octane is clearly a big part of that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it is and go over a few kind of key features. So what exactly is Octane? So Octane's a new edition of Ember. Editions were recently introduced in Ember, so it's kind of a new thing. Octane is actually the first new edition that's been added to Ember. Represents a fairly fundamental shift in the programming model. It improves productivity and performance, and it's pretty awesome. So excited to talk to you all about that tonight. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about deprecations. Everybody loves some good deprecations. So with Octane, we're losing jQuery, which I know everyone's going to be upset about. That'll help not only with just being able to use native JavaScript, obviously, but the package size will be decreased greatly. I think it was like a fifth of the total bundle, so that's really nice. Getting rid of non-native classes, computed properties, observers, curly component invocation, all this stuff here is going away, I think for the better. So a few key features that I just wanted to talk with you all about tonight. Native JavaScript classes, track properties, Glimmer components, and AngleBracket syntax. So I'll try to cover these fairly quickly. Native JavaScript classes are a great introduction to Octane. Gets rid of kind of the Ember object API that we've all grown to love. It's going to offer a lot simpler syntax, better performance, and really kind of enhanced interop with the rest of the ecosystem. So I think that'll be really great for Ember and great for Ember developers as well. Native classes are supported, as you can see, for all of these things in Ember Octane, which is going to be great. This is just kind of an example of a before and after, what it looked like, what we all know now, kind of extending a controller. In the bottom slide, you can see that we're no longer extending in that fashion. We're actually just extending a class, which is great. A few other kind of differences you'll notice. A lot of Octane is kind of syntactic changes. You'll see with injections, for instance, using the @ sign to get the store into the class there. That's a new one. We can now use constructor instead of init, which is a nice introduction. And constructor is where you can do all of your kind of setup code safely. And this .super is a little different now, as you can see there. So, track properties are really cool. When I saw these introduced, yeah, just really kind of liked the direction it was going in. A lot simpler syntax, and kind of a lot less that developers have to do. Really manages state in a new way for Ember, being a decorator on a native class. I'll show an example after this, but it's basically going to replace computed properties. So tracked will allow you to kind of keep track of state on properties throughout the UI. The nice thing is you really only have to annotate values that are trackable, those that may change over time or those that kind of impact how the DOM is rendered. So this is an example here, kind of a before and after. Computed properties, we all know up here, trying to get kind of a full name. As you'll see below with Octane, things are a lot cleaner. We're really just tracking first name and last name, and then using a native getter to return the full name. So a lot more kind of native JavaScript, and a lot cleaner syntax for everybody.
So just there is
Yep.
the Ember object that you have to extend?
No, you no longer have to use Ember Octane.
Getting away with it, yeah.
You're extending a Glimmer component, which is just basically a little bit of a decoration on a regular class, JavaScript class.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about Glimmer oh, here we are. Glimmer components was the third kind of key feature to talk about. Anybody that's used Glimmer is familiar with those, but a lot of nice things here. There are only 2 lifecycle hooks compared to the 13 we currently have. Constructor and will destroy. As I mentioned, constructor is great for setting up all your setup code. They require the native class syntax, so the classic class will no longer work, the Ember object. No more Ember object APIs like extend, reopen class, any of that. And mix-ins are no longer supported either, so. I think the greatest thing about Glimmer components is there's no wrapping element around them. So what you see in your template, what you write in there is actually what's rendered into the DOM. Any of us that have used tag name, class name bindings, any of that are really going to appreciate the way Glimmer components are written. This is just a quick example of what that looks like. In your template, you have a div just returning hello earth. And in the DOM, that's what you get. There's no Ember view div wrapping it, nothing like that. This is one more kind of quick example of how the tag name is being used currently and how we will not have to use that in the future. So on the left, you basically say, hey, this is going to be a button with this.text inside it. Which if you're reading through code is a little hard to follow. On the right with Octane, you can see that the template actually has a button in it and this.text. So it's a lot easier to kind of follow, a lot more straightforward in that sense. So you'll also notice with Octane that there's the @action. That's replacing the actions hash. And this will work in Glimmer components as well as controllers and routes. So. The last one to talk about is AngleBracket syntax. So this is just a new way to invoke components. Gets rid of a lot of the curlies. I know everybody loves curlies, but there can often be too many in there. Really helps distinguish between like, is this a component? Is this a template? Is this helper logic? So I think that'll be really helpful. And if anybody's used React is familiar with this, so they open and close the same way as HTML elements. So pretty straightforward in that sense. These are just a couple of examples of what that looks like. Fewer curlies. We now have different capitalization for invoking components, and then you'll see. Now the @item, for instance, on the left tells you that this is an argument being passed in. So before where we had item, it could often be unclear what that was referring to. So this will help a little bit with that as well. So just a couple examples there. So those are the 4 things I kind of wanted to talk about. I have a really quick demo app I'll show you. We'll just take 1 second, but there's some exciting things coming down the pipeline for Octane in addition to what I've showed you. Module unification is really exciting. It was supposed to make it into Octane, but they're going to have to delay it just a little bit. Your component, your template, and your test will all be co-located in one directory, which will help, I think, a lot for how things are laid out. Template imports are coming as well. And then Embroider is a new state-of-the-art build pipeline, which should offer some increased performance. So let me switch real quick. Yep. So this is just a super quick Octane app I put together. It's just your basic counter that everybody does as like a demo, but you can see what we're doing here is just keeping track of the count and then doubling or tripling based on that. You can randomize it if you want, increase from there, reset. But what I really wanted to show you was the code for this. So might be a little hard to see. Let's see. There we go. So in the application template, we're basically just invoking this counter. And then within the counter, we have these headings, obviously, with the counts, and then just the 3 buttons that you saw. So this is kind of bringing in the AngleBracket syntax, as well as some of the new kind of @ syntax here. Each of these buttons, like I mentioned in the example before, is just a button. So it's a lot clearer what we're working with here. And then in the counter component, we're using, first off, we're extending a native class, which is great, and then we're using the tracked property to keep track of the count, incrementing, doubling, tripling from there. So the nice thing is some of these notes down here, this removes a lot of the Emberisms that are in the code that we deal with a lot of the time. Using native classes offers a lot of great opportunities. And the tracked property, as I talked about, just marks things that when they mutate, you want to update the rest of your UI. So
I thought that they hadn't gotten rid of set yet, but you're not using set.
This is in Glimmer components, they don't have set.
Yeah.
When you extend Ember Object, you still have to do some setter things. But with Glimmer components, you don't. When you put that track decorator on there, it basically puts a getter and a setter on that thing.
Okay, cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, so this looks a lot more like the native JavaScript we're used to. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was that. Showed the demo app. Bottom line, oops, Octane rocks. Try it out. You can learn more about it here. I think it's going to make all of us really happy working with Ember in the future.
So I'm just like, what is the state of Octane? Is it like a preview, or is it like go build production apps right away?
This is a preview now, so you can play around with it. They don't recommend production apps at this point with Octane.
They just merged a few of the necessary things for Octane, and they're still working on a couple more. So like in Canary Branch is the nested component syntax. You know, like when you have nested components inside of folders, you have to do the slash and the curlies. They just merged the syntax. It's a double colon syntax for nested components in AngleBracket. So right now, if you went and downloaded Ember 3.8 and you tried to do nested components, it won't work in AngleBracket, even though AngleBracket is in 3.8. And so there's stuff like that like you would need Canary to do a few of the things.
Yeah,
Super badass.
it's awesome. Yeah,
They need to market the shit out of that.
I know.
So they're putting in they're doing a new homepage that has all this stuff in it, and it'll be kind of
yeah. That'll be awesome. So many thanks to all of y'all. Many thanks to Ember ATX and the sponsors. Appreciate the opportunity.